All right, we have a lot we want to talk about today. You can get news on the thrashing that the Democrats took, clearly in the U.S. Senate, in the U.S. House, in gubernatorial races all over the country, surprise defeats in Maryland and in Illinois. I mean, this was the biggest thrashing that anyone has taken since just after World War II. That's how far back the pundits and the prognosticators are having to reach to look at what a devastating defeat this was. I'm going to come at this from a little bit different angle to give you some talking points. Remember, the purpose of this program is not simply to report the news, but to filter the news through a historic Judeo-Christian lens, through the scriptures, to equip you to be the light and the salt of the earth that God has called you to be. Okay? Now, there's a lot of people right now that are saying that the Republicans have a chance to show that they can work with the president. They need to not be the party of no. Well, if you remember back to 1994, which I do, I was very involved in politics at that time, that was when Newt Gingrich led the surprising upset and took the House of Representatives. And before the race, he had what he called the contract with America. He told everyone, this is what we're going to do if you elect us. And they actually got a lot of it done. It was tinkering around the edges, don't get me wrong. There wasn't any major ethical changes in the direction of the country. But they made promises, and they did everything they could to make good on those promises. They passed bills. They sent them to the Senate. When they had a pass in the House and the Senate, they were sent to President Clinton's desk, who either signed them or didn't sign them. So with them, if you remember, again, thinking back, there was the government shutdown. And the problem was that Newt Gingrich lost control of the debate. In other words, suddenly he was blamed for shutting down the government when it should have been President Clinton who was blamed. All right, so just keep that little fact of history in your mind. And then let's come back to the party of no. There are some people who have forgotten how many of the 10 Commandments are declared in the negative. You shall not have any other gods before me. You shall not make any graven images. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not covet. These are all negatives. These are all nots. They're all no's. All right? Now, I want to ask you a question. What did the Republican Party, what did their candidates run on? What national cohesive theme existed prior to the election? Think about it. What was it? Well, the only one that I can think of was Obama is an abject failure and we've got to stop him. Right? It was stop the Obama agenda. Stop him. Stop him. Stop his agenda on the Keystone Pipeline. Stop his agenda with Ebola. Stop his agenda with immigration. Stop his agenda with the fight against religious liberty. Stop his agenda with the militant homosexual marriage movement. Stop this man. In other words, say no. Say no. That's it, people. And by the way, I want to tip my hat to Rush, who has been hammering this theme, and others are picking up on it and debating it. But I'm trying to come at it from an ethical point. And that is that it is ethical. It is biblical, if you will, to say no. Just look at the commandments. Thou shalt not. And you don't compromise with murder. Thou shalt not murder unless you have to compromise so that you're not labeled as the party of no. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord your God in vain unless you've just got to go to Washington and get something done so that you don't get bad press. No. If this Congress has a lick of sense, they are going to do two things. When I come back from this break, I'll tell you what they are.
You have two choices. I mean, you can try to raise your children by design, or you will raise them by default. There are no perfect parents. We're going to get it wrong sometimes. If we have a plan, we've got a better chance of getting it right in the long run.
There is something deep within the heart of every human being that longs for parental acceptance and approval. When does a boy become a man?
Get a group of guys around and ask them that question.
I don't think there's a certain age. Some men stay boys their whole life.
I would say, 16, 18 years old?
Wow, that's a good question.
When they get bar mitzvah?
Well, I think when he has a child. So I just became at 56, 56 years old.
Without the power of the Holy Spirit changing us and giving us power over our sin, we can't hope to be the dads that our kids need us to be.